I'm tired of this game, Grandpa.
Well, that's too damn bad.
And welcome back, Corkies, to episode 33 of Crips and Corks. I'm your host, DJ, here with my co-host,
Paul, as usual.
Plus, do you want to...
Oh yeah, we have an audience today. We have some visitors from out of town who traveled a long ways just to be here with us today. My mom and brother are up here visiting, so we have an audience today. You probably won't hear them, but they're in the room with us.
Yes.
So, DJ, how's it going? How's your week?
Well, it's fantastic. This is the first time ever on the pod you've asked me how my week was first.
Sometimes you just gotta switch it up. Versatility is key to a healthy prostate.
I'm good. It was a slow day at work, but something really interesting happened the other day. I was sitting at my desk working from home and I had the window open just to get some air circulation in. And all of a sudden I hear, "Get back here! Come back here!" Bah! Bah! And I'm like, what is going on? Because I live in a very normal suburban neighborhood.
Right, it's very upscale too.
Yes, and I look out the window and this guy is chasing around two baby goats or lambs, something, around the street. I guess he got them for pets and they escaped. But it was so funny because he'd be like he'd corner one and then it would like shoot past him and he'd be like, "Get back here!" And the goat would go, "Bah!" Like it was talking back to him. And I watched it for a solid 10 minutes doing nothing. And then when they got caught, I just went, "Oh, guess I gotta go back to work and being bored again."
Right. I'm surprised lambs aren't like a violation of your HOA. Don't you have an HOA?
I think we talked about this in the podcast. We do have an HOA, but it's the chillest HOA ever, where they do collect dues, but it's simply to do community events for like the kids in the neighborhood, like trick-or-treating, holiday parades, Santa Claus visits, Easter Bunny visits, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's not the kind of HOA with, "Melanie, why is your garden gnome have a green hat and a red vest? You know, according to regulations, it has to have a green vest and a red hat."
I know. HOAs are so annoying. I know we already talked about this once on the pod, so I won't go into it. But HOAs are annoying. But it really is interesting. Like, you wouldn't think, like, this far in the city, like, people would have farm animals like that. Like, in their backyards. Like, what are we doing?
I mean, I'm a little further out from the city than you, so I could see, like, if somebody had a couple chickens. And, like, when I was growing up, it was a lot less suburban and a little more rural. Like, there were there's a horse farm, a dairy farm, and then, like, a crop growing farm. All, like, 2 minutes drive from my house when I was a child.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. The more you know.
They are now cookie cutter housing plans, which makes me very sad because I would rather look at cows. How's your week been, Paul?
Well, this week I've officially given up.
With what?
June is quickly approaching us, and you know, for June, it's very important for us gays to have like that body put together, but it's not happening this year.
You just gave up? I gave up back in March.
Right. There will be no abs. I had Burger King like an hour ago. Girl, it's done. It's canceled. We've given up. Like, we're not going to be looking hot.
Dustin,
maybe for July, but...
Dustin, our friend, and he was like sending me options for like pride outfits, and I was sending him things back, and they were all like cute crop toppy cutouts, and he's like, "That's cute, you should get it." I was like, "Oh no, that exposes my midriff. I'm showing you, Mr. I don't have a waist."
Dustin has the tiniest little waist.
Like, it's not even there.
Right. What is he talking about?
So that's why I was like, here, you wear the cute croppy stuff. I'm going to wear a muumuu.
Right. We're wearing muumuus. Muumuus for Pride 2024. Muumuus in Pride 2024.
Yes,
it's what's happening.
Rainbow tie-dye muumuus.
Which, muumuus are coming back. Brittany Broski is actually going to drop her muumuus, which is crazy.
I told you last year I wanted you, me, and Dan to get matching muumuus.
Well, girl, you already have the Cheryl one, so we just have to get two more to match the Cheryl
one.
Yeah, so we just need two more.
Sadly, I don't think Macy's is doing that sale anymore.
What can
There will
you
be
do?
another one.
Well, speaking of giving up, someone who hasn't given up is our hot guy of the month, Reba. And May's already over. I can't believe it.
I know.
And we learned so much about Reba this month. We learned about where she came from, how she's still working it to this day, even in her older age. Not to kind of harp on her older age, but she's
I
really
learned
just...
what steers were.
You did? You know what a steer is now? I feel like back in touch with my roots. And I don't mean to brag, but Netflix did just put Reba back on this month. I'm not
Did
saying
they?
we had anything to do with it, but
We did.
there's no such thing as a coincidence in my book, so you're welcome for getting Reba back on Netflix. We did that for you. You listeners. But honestly, I love, like, everyone's getting back into the country thing right now, and Reba's just slaying the game. She just released new music, her new book, and honestly, when I'm that age, I know I joked the last time that, like, when I'm that age, just let me lay down, but I hope when I'm that age, I have something to be passionate about. I mean, even now, I just want something to be passionate about. Well, I do. I have the podcast, but I don't know. There's something to be said about having something you're passionate and driven about and working towards it with no matter like what boundaries you might be ahead of you. And I think Reba really teaches us to follow our dreams, follow your passions, and really work no matter what's in your way.
Well, Paul, you are very passionate about the podcast, and you better keep passionate because when we're Reba's age, we're still going to be doing this.
Right, we're going to be in the home.
There is no retirement. And when we die, our ghost will come back and continue to do this.
Exactly. So a big thank you to Reba for being our Hot Guy of the Month. I'm so excited. We have a very special Hot Guy of the Month for Pride next month. So stay tuned for that. It's been a good May, and let's finish it out strong with whatever we're drinking today. What are we drinking today?
We are definitely ending May strong and going into Pride Month strong. We don't have one paranormal pairing. We have two.
Two?
And a spooky snack.
Girl, we're not going to be able to walk after this.
So let me talk about the wine that I've picked out. Mm-hmm. It is a Madeira from OPC Vineyards. I'm just guessing on the pronunciation. The OPC name represents outstanding quality and value, appreciated for generations since 1913. This rich, lush red is wonderful on its own and with a variety of cheeses, stews, and desserts. Add a delightful burst of flavor to sauces and sautés.
Ooh, fancy.
Give it a nice little crack.
Okay. That was a pretty good crack.
Oh, that's different.
Oh, girl. Let me get one more glass.
Yes, please. I forgot to do the ASMR pour.
It's not too late. It's never too late, Jack. Was that even the line from that movie?
No.
That was the wrong line
It's
even.
I'll never let go. Good try.
Oh, she's white.
It's like a blush.
Girl, the ASMR pour. We have one more shot.
I got one that... no, we both interrupted it.
Beautiful.
All right.
Cheers.
We'll try again. There we go.
Oh.
Okay.
She's a little medicine-y. It's giving mold wine a little bit. Very, not great.
It's a little meaty.
It is meaty. It does taste like meat. What do you think?
Okay.
We're getting the thumbs up from my mom. She likes it. She's here for the wine.
I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 grapes.
I'm going to give it a 1 grape. It's not my favorite. Oh, my mom's giving it a 5.
5.
She said 5. Okay.
Well, you know when to get her for the next holiday.
Right. So if you're into a mead wine, you got to have the taste for this one, guys.
I should have looked... I picked Madeira for a very specific reason, which we will get to later.
Okay.
I wish I did a little more research onto it. But before we get into the second paranormal pairing.
Okay.
I'm gonna start the story. So, Paul, Kathy, let me tell you a story.
Let's get into it. Yeah.
October 1912. Tsarevich Alexei Nikolaevich lays gravely ill following a fall while in Russian Poland. His parents, the Tsar and Tsarina of Russia, are at their wits' end over the health of their youngest child and only son and heir to the Imperial Russian Throne. The best doctors in Russia are flocking to his bedside, but nothing they do seems to be helping the 8-year-old boy. All is lost, and it seems inevitable that the boy will die, and with it, all the hopes of his parents and all the dreams of the Russian Empire. That is, until a telegram with a prayer arrives. It is from a Siberian peasant who claims to be a servant of God. Is this man a saint performing miracles, or a devil sent to upend the empire? Let us find out as we delve into the story of Rasputin.
Is that really how you say it? It's not Rasputin? It's
The correct Russian pronunciation is Rasputin.
Rasputin. Okay,
Rasputin.
well, I'm not Russian, okay?
So you can continue saying Rasputin. I will be pronouncing it the Russian way because I have to say many, many Russian names in this. And if I
And
chicken out once, I am going to fuck them all up.
in the way, I'm probably not going to remember most of these names, so just be
The
ready
way
for that.
as I was doing my notes, something would come up and I'd be like, wait, who is that again?
Right. There's just something about foreign names that just doesn't stick in my head.
One thing to remember, we did talk about this before the Dyatlov Pass episode. Russians don't have middle names like we do in the West. They have patronyms, which means whatever your father's name is, you get a variation of that.
Oh, you know what? I had a patronym once. The pill cleared it right up.
Oh my god. So, our second paranormal pairing, we cannot do a Russian story without doing a shot of vodka.
Minushka, why have you turned to the vodka?
So, I have a bottle of Grey Goose vodka, which is imported from France. Like all
Traitor, bitch.
Like all liquors of the Romanov court, this is French.
Oh, so the Romanovs, who are Russian, drank French vodka.
The Russian court was very, very Francophile. They loved... The official language of the imperial court was not Russian. It was French.
Oh.
And if you were a noble in the Russian Empire, you would be taught French, then English, and then Russian.
Okay, that's crazy. I didn't know all that. That's crazy.
So, when I was in middle school, I did go through, like, an Anastasia and Romanov's phase. So, like, this was really fun to, like, bring it all back.
Honestly, I'm not surprised. Was it before or after the Titanic phase?
Oh, after. Titanic was from the time I was 6.
Oh, Jesus.
I think this is a pop.
Ooh, that
was
was
a great
nice.
pop.
That'll get you together. Okay. Get up in the gig.
Okay. Yes, I know I'm doing weak man shots.
It's fine. We gotta make it through this episode, girl. Our viewers are getting all the ASMR this episode.
And don't worry, Paul, this is the only shot we're doing this episode. We're not doing a drinking game like I joked that we were going to do.
That's fine. I'd be fine with either.
Mostly because I had the notes done and I wasn't going to go back and create a drinking game. So, as they say in Russia, Vestrovia.
Vestrovia. Vaseline. Oh, jeez. Ooh.
It's a lot smoother than it could have been.
That'll get you together, honey. We just did that Grey Goose shot.
Sorry, I should have chilled it.
It's fine.
But I did literally just buy it and bring it over.
Also, the Grey Goose bottle's really pretty.
It is.
If you're looking for a decorative bottle, go get yourself the Grey Goose.
Are you laughing at me gagging?
You can laugh. It's okay.
Oh. It's better when it's chilled. Okay. I have visual aids.
AIDS?
Paul. Alright, before we get into this, trigger warning, there will be some discussion of sexual assault and violent depictions of murder in this episode. Not many. It's not like one of our more gruesome episodes. I will bring it up, when they come up. So, Rasputin was born as Grigory Yefimyevich Rasputin in Pokrovsk, Siberia, in the Russian Empire in January 1896. His parents were Yefim Rasputin, a peasant farmer and church elder who sometimes worked as a government courier who would carry documents from their village to the province's capital. Mm-hmm. And Anna Parshkova. The couple had 7 other children before Rasputin.
Oh, okay.
Who all died in infancy or early childhood.
So they had 7 kids who died before they had Rasputin.
Yes, and then the weird one survived.
The weird one survived. That's usually how it be. That's how I got here, honestly.
There are some conflicting stories of a mysterious 9th child born after Grigory, a daughter named Feodosia, with whom Grigory was very close. It's said that they were very close from the time of childhood into adulthood. He was godfather of all of her children, but the surviving records cannot confirm whether or not she ever existed.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it makes sense why later why these records would have been destroyed.
Okay.
And also they were peasants.
No one was.
Do you really think you were getting born in your hovel? You weren't exactly reporting.
Right. No one really cares.
As a peasant, neither he nor his parents would have received much education, if any, and Rasputin was illiterate well into his adulthood.
Oh, okay.
Illiteracy is a disease.
For some people, it's terminal.
Not for him. At this time in Siberia, which is very, very isolated, so at the time, you have the Russian Empire.
Yes.
Which, think of it as a rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a bit on the west, which is in Europe. And that's where all the nobles live. That's where the capital is. And then you have the Ural Mountains, through which the border with Asia runs.
Okay.
And so then you have, the rest of it is Asiatic Russia. And you have Siberia, which is cold and remote and desolate, and that's where they send all the criminals. Mm-hmm. Nanushka, your husband is in Gulag.
Exactly, the Gulag. That's one of my favorite dishes.
And then, you mean goulash? I think you made that joke on me on the back.
I did.
And then it just gets more and more rural as you get to the Pacific coast. And there's more indigenous people. There's Russian people who have mixed with the Mongol people to the south. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very isolated. And so you have European Russia, which is very westernized. The high society is basing themselves off the French court. They're speaking French. They're trying to compete with the industry of London and Berlin and America. And then you cross these mountains and you have this mix of Russian Orthodoxy and pagan mysticism.
That's interesting.
Which really created a very unique belief system. Well, the Russian Orthodox are oh no, there's no prophets. There are no more prophets. The Bible's been written. Mm-hmm. You cross into the Urals and go into Siberia, and it's you must meet this man. He's a prophet. And he's doing things more pagan-esque than the church is, because that's how they've done things for centuries.
Right. That's really interesting, actually. It's interesting to hear how religions that kind of mend and mesh together and adopt each other's beliefs and things. Well, maybe they didn't do that, but...
Because, the Russians, they definitely, conquered all the land, but it was very much, okay, we own you, you're on your own. Unlike the Americans who were like, shoo-shoo.
Get it.
Shoo-shoo, mine now.
Exactly.
From childhood, Rasputin showed an ability for the supernatural.
Oh.
He disturbed his parents and neighbors with odd predictions and abilities. And when I say disturbed, I don't mean it wasn't like he said some... Like, he said creepy shit. It wasn't creepy what he said. He said creepy shit. Like, one story has, like, he was, like, in a bar and, like, he was, like, doing this. And some guy was like, oh, you're nothing but a fake. And Rasputin closed his eye and said, you stole 3 of your neighbor's horses and blamed it on the other neighbor. And they went to the guy's stable and they found the 3 missing horses, even though the other neighbor had been arrested and the guy was lynched.
That's crazy. He said, do you want to bet? Oh my gosh.
Another story has it that he once encountered a wounded horse who was, like, slated to be shot because, like, he was that wounded. And Rasputin laid his hands on it and healed it.
Okay, that's crazy. This is like... Okay, but is this just people telling stories, or is this, like, real accounts of, like, things that are going on?
That's an excellent question. We're going to move on.
Okay.
Because we don't have a good answer. You have to remember, people, like, these are illiterate people, so it's literally like stories being passed around by mouth.
Right, right. And people will say all sorts. And you act just a little bit strange, and we know how, like...
We've seen in witch trials.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, how devoutly Christian Russians are. Anything that's, like, remotely out of the world of that, they probably just reject. And
But remember, here, because there's still that little bit of pagan belief mixed in.
Oh, so they have the mysticism adding to it.
So
they're
it's... And we'll get into this more. It's more like, this is a living saint.
Oh.
And, like, the other thing in Russian Orthodoxy that's different from most Western Christianity is it's very supernatural. They believe, like, certain icons, which are these beautiful gilded pictures of saints or Jesus or the Blessed Mother. Some of them are so blessed that they have healing properties, or they have properties to grant your prayer if you go to them. That all of this is sprinkled through.
All sorts of mysticism.
Yes, very that. There are also some stories from some surviving records showing that Rasputin was a little bit of a hoodlum. He may have been convicted of some small petty crimes, including drinking, small thefts, and disrespecting authorities. So what I think... So the story I'm hearing here is he was drinking underage, because what else do you do in Siberia?
Right.
And then he stole a loaf of bread. And then he got caught. And then he mooned the police. The militia.
Ooh, girl. See, that's not even that bad. I did all of that just this morning. Like, that's a Tuesday.
Oh my gosh. At the age of 17, Rasputin married a fellow peasant girl named Praskoya Drobonivina. And together they had 7 children, only 3 of whom lived into adulthood.
Yeah, it was probably a common thing back then for people not to make it.
Remember how I said, like, the Russians, like, conquered it and then said, okay, like, do your own thing, we own you?
Right.
There weren't exactly good doctors around.
Ugh.
In 1897, at the age of 28, Rasputin left his family to go on a spiritual pilgrimage. The reason for this is disputed. Some sources saying that he was fleeing his hometown following committing a crime such as stealing a horse, which was a huge no-no.
Yeah.
As we talked about before.
Horses were a big deal back in the day.
Oh my god, yeah, that's like stealing somebody's car.
Right, it's your livelihood, girl.
I mean, that horse got you to and from town. It helped you plow your fields.
Right.
It was a member of the family. That's like somebody stealing grandma.
Not someone stealing grandma.
Yeah.
Damn.
However, other sources from supporters say that he had a vision in which the Virgin Mary came to him either crying or crying tears of blood, and he knew he had to go on a pilgrimage. In this whole, like, mysticism and orthodoxy, like, crying tears of blood is very normal.
Mm-hmm. No, that's crazy. He had that dream and left his wife, his kids, his family. He said, sorry, y'all. Good luck. Good luck against the cold.
Now, he had taken other shorter pilgrimages to local monasteries and to the local cathedral at Tobolsk. And this was extremely common for Russians of all classes and walks of life at the time. You would travel to different monasteries, churches, or cathedrals which had significance or had these great icons which had special powers to grant prayers, heal ailments, etc., etc. Everyone did this. It would be like, oh, your mother has cancer, you need to go to this monastery, and you need to pray to this saint.
Okay, that makes sense.
However, what makes it a pilgrimage and not you're going to pray there is that it had to be a true pilgrimage, meaning that there had to be some discomfort involved. Some people would fast for weeks, living off water and scraps of bread as they traveled. Others would wear heavy chains or shackles around their ankles and walk hundreds of miles. Some people would drag chests or boxes full of rocks. Just that suffering before you got there.
Mm-hmm.
Rasputin chose to not change his clothes for a year and a half.
Oh my god. You can get like infections and
I know.
diseases, all sorts of crazy things.
Which, it was probably a lot more uncomfortable for other people than it was for him.
Yeah, probably smells.
Especially as for the rest of his life, Rasputin would openly brag about his lack of hygiene. At one point, he even bragged that he had never changed his underwear for over 6 months.
That's so gross. He sounds like a middle school boy. Like, I feel like that's something a middle school boy would do.
Rasputin traveled to the St. Nicholas Monastery in Vokhotyar, and there he met a starets named Makary.
He met a who?
A starets.
What the fuck's that?
A starets is an elder within a monastery in the Eastern Orthodox Church who serves as a teacher and advisor. They're not always priests,
Okay.
nor are they appointed by anyone. So, like, a bishop can't say, oh, Paul, you're a starets. Rather, they are recognized as being of the spirit. So it could just be like Joe Schmo, who came to the convent, and suddenly, like, he's spitting out mad wisdom, and it's like, you gotta go to Paul. He is a very wise starets.
Oh.
And, like, they were also, like, they were considered wise. Some of them were considered to have, like, spiritual powers, like healing. Some of them seemed to be, like, in direct communication with God. Like, if you told them something, like, I want this, like, pray for it, and God would, like, give it to you. His meeting with Makary changed his life, and Rasputin remained at the monastery for several months, probably just now learning to read and write.
Oh.
At nearly 30.
Huh.
However, after several months, Rasputin then decided to leave the monastery rather than join the priesthood, which he felt was too restrictive for him. He also claimed that some of the monks were engaged in homosexual activity, which he did not jive with.
I mean, they probably were, honestly. I wouldn't doubt it.
So I had a friend whose aunt is a former nun.
Okay.
And the aunt is very, like, out and proud about, I only joined the convent because I was a lesbian, and as a Catholic, I felt I had no other choice.
Mm-hmm.
And then she left the nunhood and is married to a woman.
So...
But her principal, who is also a nun, who is still a nun, flirts with her.
Oh.
Because apparently
Oh my God.
convents are just...
They're plowing.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about fields.
He returned home a changed man. He became a vegetarian. He swore off alcohol. And he prayed and sang fervently in church and at home.
Girl, that sounds wild. That's like a complete, like, 180, I
Yes,
feel like.
going from pounding those vodka shots to I'm a vegetarian.
Right. It sounds a little bit like mental illness babes. Like, one extreme to the other like that.
Now, at this point, Rasputin decided that he was going to leave home and pursue life as a stranik. A stranik is a holy wanderer who spends their lives wandering from holy site to holy site in prayer and contemplation. Rasputin claimed during this time he had wandered as far as Mount Athos in Greece, which is the very center of Eastern Orthodox monastic life. So imagine, like, walking from the North Siberia all the way down to Greece in the Mediterranean.
Hey, at least it's warm there. Jesus.
By the early 1900s, Rasputin amassed a small following. It was mostly family and a few friends or neighbors who would pray with him in a makeshift chapel in his father's root cellar. Because, surprise, surprise, he wasn't doing much with his life, so he's still living with his father, along with his family.
Oh my gosh.
Now, these meetings were like an open secret, and they really did not make him popular amongst many of the other villagers and the local priest. There were many rumors going around that Rasputin was a member of the Klisti. The Klisti were an underground religious sect in Russia which promoted direct communication with the Holy Spirit through rejoicing, which meant that they would dance, sing, speak in tongues, and prophecy.
It's sounding a little culty, honestly.
Yes, it's very culty. Basically, these people would, dance and sing until they hallucinated.
Oh my gosh.
Members of the group were often accused of debauched orgies and sexual practices in order to get closer to God.
Yo.
Despite the rumors, many historians do not believe Rasputin was a member of this group, but he may have encountered it and used some of its beliefs amongst his followers at a later time. I did have to throw that little disclaimer in there.
Mm-hmm.
In 1904 or 1905, Rasputin traveled to Kazan, where things really took off for him.
Oh, girl.
While there, his charisma and his activities gave him the reputation of being a very wise starets, and he met the bishops Andrei and Kostanos, who wrote him a recommendation to the prestigious seminary at the Alexander Nevsky Monastery in St. Petersburg, which was the capital of Russia at the time. Upon arriving at the monastery in St. Petersburg, he met Bishop Theophan, the inspector of the cemetery, and eventual confessor to the imperial family. And he made such an impression on Theophan that he invited Rasputin to come live with him and his family.
Okay, so to recap, this guy was a famous guy that Rasputin is now with, the guy who invited him. What was he again?
He was the inspector of the seminary. So he was like an official. A seminary is like where you go to learn how to become a priest.
Okay.
So he made a huge impression on Theophan, who was basically head of the seminary, and who would eventually become the personal priest to the imperial family.
Okay, and the Imperials were like the royal
Yes.
family back then for the Russians.
Yes, the only difference is like royal means king or queen, whereas imperial means emperor and empress.
Period. Okay, cool.
Rasputin's arrival in St. Petersburg came at the perfect time. In the second half of the 19th century, spiritualism and occultism were hugely fashionable among the rich and influential. Ooh. Remember how we talked about Abraham Lincoln having seances in the White House?
Oh yeah, I remember it.
Many of the aristocrats in the city were fascinated by the supernatural and mysticism, but they were very bored after tiring of the previous self-proclaimed mystics, psychics, etc.
Oh, so they thought they all were fakes, basically, and they were looking for something new.
It may not have been like they were fakes. It might have been like, okay, you've done this one party trick over and over again.
Oh, so they were bored.
Yes.
They're ready for the new toy, the new big...
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, really, Monsieur Philippe? The Ouija board again? We've been doing this Ouija board for 5 years.
Right.
And every time, all we get is Zo.
Not Zozo!
Thank you for getting my joke.
Zozo's a demon,
but
for those at home.
Can you imagine, like,
know.
some Russian princess like, oh, Zozo again?
Gosh, I wonder why I keep getting scratched at night.
Rasputin's friendship with Theophan allowed him into the salons of the well-to-do, who were charmed by his charisma and his manners. Yes, I put manners under air quotes because he had none. There is one story of he was invited to this fancy dinner party, and like this is in the early 1900s, where a dinner party lasted 3 hours and you were being served 11 courses of food.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
And there was a very proper way to eat everything. And basically, he was served soup.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, you would take your soup and you would take your spoon and you would go from the side of the bowl nearest to you and you would scrape away.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, he just picked it up and
Oh gosh. He's basically that one cousin who comes in and they're like, howdy y'all!
But
how we doing?
But just imagine, like, you've never met someone like this, and it's like, oh, that's kind of charming. Like, I've never seen this. How quirky.
Oh god.
Quirky girl.
I'm surprised they didn't, like, judge him for that, though, and, like, turn their nose up, because, like, royal people and, like, rich people, they tend to turn their nose up about people like that.
Some people were definitely, like, the novelty wore off fast. Like, some people would, like, oh, I have a story, it's at my table. And then he would do something like slurp the soup or, eat a loaf of bread so fast and then have all these crumbs in his beard. And then you meet him 3 weeks later and he has the same crumbs.
No. Oh my god.
What part of this man is gross, don't you get? Like, I told you, he'd not changed his underwear for over half a year. This man is gross.
And they're just like, he's not gross, he's just quirky.
So some people were like, so that was the entertainment, never happening again.
Oh,
but other were like, this is a holy man. And
girl, that's like us watching trailer trash Tammy.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Some people turn their nose up, but we love her.
Okay, so you know how like we go like, oh, she's so charming, like so different from us.
Yeah. Tammy's not that different from me. Let's be real.
So, one set of ladies who were very charmed by Rasputin were known as the Black Princesses.
Ooh, okay, that's fierce. Get into
They
that.
were the Grand Duchess Militsia and Grand Duchess Anastasia, and they were Montenegrin princesses who had married cousins of the Tsar and were deeply immersed in spiritualism and occultism.
Okay. Were they actually African American or no?
No,
okay.
Like we're talking like black magic, which is an outdated term.
Okay.
But like that's where the came, like they were very spiritualist and.
Okay. Huh.
So he became really close with them, and like I said, they were cousins of the Tsar and friend of the Empress. And now we're gonna leave Rasputin for a little bit.
Bitch, the episode's about him. What else are we going to talk about, girl? What are we doing?
We're going to talk about the Imperial family, who are kind of like the side characters that we can't get through the story without.
Okay.
So we're going to start with the reigning Tsar, Emperor Nicholas II. He was called Nicky by his family. He was the oldest child of Tsar Alexander III and his wife Marie, formerly Princess Dagmar of Denmark. In 1881, he witnessed the aftermath of the assassination of his grandfather Alexander II, who had a bomb thrown at him while riding through St. Petersburg. The incident led to Alexander III repealing many of his liberal father's policies and continuing an autocratic policy. So Alexander II was very liberal. In Russia, they didn't have slaves, they had serfs.
Okay.
And he freed the serfs, and he was basically paving the way for Russia to become like a truly westernized society. And after his assassination, his son was like, whoa, that was a little risky. Let's go back to being a dictator.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Now, in 1984, Nicholas's uncle Sergei married the beautiful Princess Elizabeth of Hesse. And at the wedding, Nicholas met her younger sister, Alex, for the first time. Alex was the sixth child of Grand Duke Louis II of Hesse-Darmstadt and Princess Alice of the United Kingdom. She was the favorite granddaughter of Queen Victoria and was nicknamed Sunny for her sunny disposition as a baby. When she was a year old, her brother Ferdy died after a fall. When she was 6, an outbreak of diphtheria broke out in the palace, and she and her siblings all caught it. Her mother refused to allow nannies to care for her children and did herself. But she caught the illness and died on December 14th, the 17th anniversary of the death of Alex's grandfather, Prince Albert. Following the death of Alex, Queen Victoria took over as Alex's surrogate mother and handpicked her tutors and nannies and sent her gifts of the finest quality. Victoria loved Alex so much that she hand-selected her as the bride of her grandson, Prince Albert Victor, the eldest son of her eldest son, a match which would see Alex one day be Queen of England. Alex, however, said no, as she was already in love with Nikki, whom she met at the wedding in 1884, and with whom she corresponded with ever since. However, the match was vehemently opposed on both sides. Victoria personally liked Nicholas, but she disliked Russia, who she had fought a war with in the Crimea, and whose father she referred to as the Bear, not for his huge height and build, and when I say he was huge, Alexander III was like 6'4".
Oh, wow.
And like Queen Victoria's like 5'1", so you can imagine.
Oh, girl. That's crazy about her.
But she did not call him the Bear for his huge height, but because of his ferocious anti-democratic policies. On the other side, Alexander and Marie were both very anti-German and totally against their eldest son marrying a German princess of low rank and status. Alex was born before there was a united Germany. Darmstadt was in Germany, and like her father was a Grand Duke, which is like below a king, and he wanted her to marry an emperor. So even amongst royals, there's classism.
Oh, I can imagine, girl. I saw that Red, White, and Royal Blue movie.
However, finally in 1894, Alexander III consented to the marriage as his health was failing. In April of that year, Nikki finally proposed to Alex at her brother's wedding, and she said no.
That's crazy. She liked him so much, too.
She literally turned down so many other people because she loved him, and he finally proposes, and she says no, because she didn't want to convert from Protestantism to Russian Orthodoxy.
That's crazy about her.
Alex spent the rest of the day being counseled by her own Russian relatives. Remember, her sister married into the imperial family. She had an aunt who married into the royal family. She had cousins who had married, who had members from the family marry.
Mm-hmm.
And also, she was first cousins once removed to George V, who was Nikki's first cousin and best friend, because their mothers were sisters. It's a web.
It very much is. It's a
They're
little hard.
cousins so many times, it's not even funny.
Yeah, it's a little hard to follow. I'm not going to lie to you.
But after talking to all of her Russian relatives, she finally consented to Nicholas's second proposal the next day. On November the 1st of that year, Alexander III died, and Nicholas assumed the Russian throne as Nicholas II. On November 26th, the couple were married, and she became Empress Alexandra Fyodorovna.
Okay.
Many Russians saw the timing of the marriage as a bad omen, saying, "She comes to us behind a coffin. She brings misfortune with her." But the couple were very much in love and remained devoted to each other and began their family with the birth of the Grand Duchess Olga, born in 1895, the Grand Duchess Tatiana in 1897, the Grand Duchess Maria in 1899, and the Grand Duchess Anastasia in 1901, or Anastasia. The birth of the 4 girls with no male heir made Alexandra even more unpopular with the Russian people, as it was illegal for girls to inherit the throne. And what do you see with this slide?
It's all black and white.
Yes. Don't worry, I did find a couple color pictures, just because I knew you would get mad if they were all black and white pictures.
Girl, the only thing that's common is they're girls and they're all dressed in white.
Exactly, they're all girls and girls can't inherit the throne. So, Nikki and Alex began to turn to faith healers and mystics to try and have a son. In 1902, Alex was under the care of one such healer, Monsieur Philippe, who claimed he could change the sex of a baby in the womb using magnets.
Me too, girl. For $20, you want a boy?
You want a boy? Give me $200,000. Let me get my
Right.
magnet. That year, Alex suffered both a phantom pregnancy and a miscarriage, and sent Monsieur Philippe to France in humiliation.
Ooh, that's rough.
The following year, Nikki and Alex supported the canonization of Seraphim of Sarov and traveled to the springs where he bathed. The following year, Alex was pregnant and gave birth to the Tsarevich Alexei Nikolaevich, a son and heir at last. And then that's a picture of all the kids.
The patriarchy is crazy, man.
Do you want to hear what's really wild?
Sure.
So Russia had actually had like reigning empresses before. Mm-hmm. It was really common. Like if a woman was married to an emperor and he died and the kid wasn't old enough to become czar yet, the wife would just be like, the throne is mine now. However, that ended with Yekaterina II, better known to history as Catherine the Great.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Who actually overthrew her husband, who was insane, enrolled Russia and like really westernized it. But she had a very problematic relationship with her son Paul. And Paul was so pissed off at his mother that he changed the Russian laws so that a woman could never become empress on her own again.
That's crazy.
To be so bitter that you changed the law.
People have done a lot worse. I don't doubt it, honestly.
So, obviously, Nikki and Alex are really happy. The girls are really happy. Russia's really happy. But that joy did not last very long, as they discovered the baby prince suffered from hemophilia. Hemophilia is a genetic disorder which inhibits the body's ability to form clots in the blood, which means that if you begin to bleed, you can't stop bleeding.
Oh.
And what's really scary is like a paper cut could be fatal.
Right, because you can't stop bleeding.
But what is more fatal is a bruise. Because very quickly it can turn into internal bleeding, and you can't stop internal bleeding.
Right. I've tried. Doesn't work.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
Maybe another time.
Okay. The disease is genetic. The disease was passed to Alexei from Alex, who got it from her mother, who got it from Queen Victoria.
Damn Victoria.
Alex's own brother, Ferdy, the one who died when she was a year old, died from complications of the disease when he fell out a window. Yeah, I don't know whether it was a second floor window or a first floor window. Because remember, like, first floor windows in a house would be low, so, like, it would be very easy to, like, trip. But I don't know if he, like, fell out a second floor window.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The imperial couple soon realized the disease was so severe that even a minor injury could be fatal to their only son and only heir. In November 1905, they were first introduced to a starets named Grigory Rasputin.
Oh, girl. Here he comes.
He did not meet the family again until July of the next year, when he asked to present them with a blessed icon and asked if he could pray for their son. Oh, hang on. That's a picture of the whole family.
And remember, kids, you can see all of these pictures. Most of these pictures on our Instagram. So take your hands off the wheel, close your eyes, open your phone, and go take a peek at our Insta.
So he presented them with a blessed icon and asked if he could pray for Alexei. It is unclear exactly when Rasputin learned of Alexei's hemophilia. He may have learned of it as early as 1906. But he was definitely aware of the disease by the next spring, as Alex summoned him when Alexei was afflicted with internal bleeding. Alex's best friend and lady-in-waiting, Anna Verubova, quickly became convinced of Rasputin's healing properties, and Alex herself was passionately attached to him and saw him as the only one able to save her son. That same autumn, 1907, Alexei fell while playing and developed an internal hemorrhage in his leg. Rasputin was summoned and shooed the doctors away from the bed and leaned over him and said, "Your pain is going away. You will soon be well. You must thank God for healing you. And now, go to sleep." The swelling in his leg immediately began to go down, and he woke up the next morning nearly totally recovered.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, it's crazy. Rasputin, like, the things he's doing is actually working.
To just say something.
Right. Yo.
The confidence of the imperial couple, or at the very least of the Empress, gave Rasputin wide power in St. Petersburg. Shortly into their friendship, Nikki appointed Rasputin as his lamplighter, the person in charge of keeping the lamps lit before his religious icons.
Okay, that would be my job back in the day. I'd go around all day lighting lamps. That would be iconic.
You can be my lamplighter, Paul.
I'm just the fierce lamplighter. That's all I do.
What a cushy job.
Right.
Because you know that came with the salary.
Oh, yeah. Just have my little one bedroom, light lamps all day.
Oh, no, it probably came like with a house or something.
But on weekends, I'll light candles on weekends. Just lamps during the weekday, though.
Well, the Russians, they had like oil lamps rather than candles because they would burn a little longer. I mean, they had candles too, but like, so they have like hanging lamps, which would be lit all the time. And then you would light candles for prayers.
Okay.
So like lighting the lamps, like you would be changing the oil, refilling it, relighting it.
Okay.
Turning it off. Somebody would have to turn them off.
Oh no, they weren't turned off.
No.
No, that was like sacrilege. They would keep them on.
The lamps stay on.
Until they burn out.
Yep. And I'm sure they were also responsible if the church then did catch on fire from the oil lamps that were left on. In fall of 1906, Rasputin felt comfortable enough to ask the emperor to change his name to Rasputin Novy, meaning New Rasputin. The Tsar not only agreed, but the legal paperwork was done so quickly as to suggest the Tsar himself grease the wheels for the request.
That's interesting.
Rasputin, meanwhile, used his position as confidant of the imperial family to accept bribes of money and of sex.
Oh, he came from that way. Oh, jeez. That's crazy.
Remember the rumors about the Cleists? The
who?
Cleisti?
I don't remember
The sex
that.
cult?
Oh, okay, the cult.
Rasputin openly preached that to get near to God, one must sin. The more you sin, the closer you get to God.
That's quite the take, honey girl. And they were like, yeah, girl, let's do it.
He even claimed that sex with him could purify a person's soul.
Okay, that's some cult leader stuff right there. That's crazy. But also relatable, because same.
In his apartment, he'd throw wild parties, getting wildly drunk, just zooted out the brain. He also smoked hashish.
Is that weed?
I think it's like an early type of weed.
Oh. Rasputin was the first stoner. He was the Bob Marley of Russia.
And he would
Get into
sleep
it.
with everyone from common prostitutes he found on the streets to high society women coming to him for advice.
Oh, he was spreading all the diseases, girl.
All the diseases. And
Oh
here's
my
the thing.
gosh.
It was... Yes, he's very dirty.
Oh.
And here's the thing. He'd be in these fine restaurants and, like, he'd see, like... I'm trying to, like, make up a name. Like, Princess Ekaterina. And he would go, my child, and, like, make out with her in front of her husband.
That's crazy.
So here's some, like...
He looks so creepy. Y'all, he looks crazy. Like, if I saw that person in a
There's
bar,
no winning picture.
I would leave the bar at that moment in time
There's
if I saw
no
that person.
winning picture.
You see that person following you down an alley at nighttime, you're done. That's it.
The eyes. The eyes. The eyes.
He's creepy.
In this picture on the far right, so that is Rasputin, and that is his daughter Maria Rasputina.
Yikes.
His wife remained devoted to him, but she stayed in Siberia.
Oh, not Siberia.
So there is literally no one stopping him. And you would think that this debauchery would turn the Empress against him, especially as Alex turned against the Empress's usual role as head of high society when she became Empress because she was scandalized by the gossip and affairs that the other women were having. But she would not be turned against Rasputin. She actually grew closer to him, invited him well into the family fold. The Tsarevich and the Grand Duchesses were encouraged to trust him and see him as a good and loyal friend and even confide in him. There were multiple occasions when guests would be taken to meet Rasputin in the imperial nursery where the children were.
I would not let that man around my kids.
The Tsar's sister, Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna, was shocked when she met Rasputin in the girls' bedroom when the girls were already in their nightgowns. And you have to remember, this is in the early 1900s when appearing in public without gloves was considered being naked.
Right. Like, that's crazy. He would have had to have been so close. And, like, for the mom to trust this man alone with her daughters like that,
So in this picture, you have Alexandra, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, Alexei, and I think that's one of the nurses. Like the governesses. There is, however, no proof at all that there was anything suspicious in the relationship between Rasputin and the Grand Duchesses or the Empress. In 1908, Rasputin wrote to Maria, "My dear Pearl M., tell me how you talked with the sea, with nature. I miss your simple soul. We will see each other soon. A big kiss." Which is just like a very affectionate note.
Mm-hmm.
Their aunt, Olga Alexandrovna, remarked on how absolutely at ease all of the girls were with him. Like, it was just totally normal. Like, he would, like, walk in the room and they would just walk over and sit on his lap and start talking to him.
Huh.
But in 1910, the girl's governess, Sofia Ivanovna Tuchieva, raised her concerns about Rasputin's visits to the nursery, and the Tsar barred him from that part of the palace. That did not stop Sophia, however, from continuing to tell her story to members of the extended imperial family, because Alex is already not very popular.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the other Romanovs did not like her.
Mm-hmm.
And then the royal family really wanted a nice, quiet, normal family life. So they retreated into the suburbs to a palace in the suburbs, and they lived very quietly outside of the capital. So this just made them more unpopular. That same year, Tatiana wrote to her mother complaining that Sophia was being too hard on, quote, our friend. So Tatiana wrote a defense of Rasputin to her mother.
Okay.
Rasputin's growing public profile soon drew him more enemies than admirers. As early as 1907, the church denounced him and charged him with heresy and denounced his teachings as heretical. Political enemies openly accused him of rape, and political pornographic cartoons depicting Rasputin and the Empress were soon spread throughout Russia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Pretty graphic.
That one's very graphic.
Cartoons.
He was accused of conspiring with Alexandra to puppeteer Nicholas into destroying the country. The Prime Minister, Pyotr Stolypin, met with Nicholas multiple times to try and rein in Rasputin to no avail. He even had the Okhrana, or secret police, keep a detail posted on him at all times to keep tabs on his movements and his activities. And his insatiable sexual appetites provided no end of ammunition for his enemies.
Well, yeah.
In 1909, he was accused of rape by a former female admirer, which led his old friend Bishop Theophan to denounce him and openly call him a threat to the monarchy. In 1910, a nursing maid in the palace, Maria Ivanovna Vishnakova, accused Rasputin of raping her. This incensed the imperial family, and an immediate investigation was opened. Alexandra, however, defended Rasputin, and the investigation ended fruitlessly when Vishnikova was discovered in bed with one of the Cossack guards, and Alexandra had her fired. So basically, she was sleeping in one of the palace cars, and it was well, how do we know you didn't get knocked up by your lover and decide to accuse this man?
Okay.
However, this was all enough for Nicholas to exile Rasputin from St. Petersburg, and Rasputin left Russia on pilgrimage to Jerusalem.
Oh, he went to the Holy Land.
Yes.
How about that?
This would have been the end of it, if not for an accident in Poland. On September 5th, 1912, an eager Alexei jumped into a rowboat and smacked his groin against one of the oarlocks. He developed a nasty bruise, which luckily went down after a couple days. Because remember, every bruise can be fatal.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Because that shows internal bleeding.
Yeah.
The family went to their hunting lodge at Spala in Russian Poland, and Alexei accompanied his mother on a carriage ride on October the 2nd. The jostling of the carriage had caused the still healing hematoma to rupture. They had to rush back to the mansion, and he was in so much pain that he had passed out and he had to be carried back in. And basically, there was so much internal bleeding that from his groin and thigh up to his abdomen was bruised.
That's crazy.
That's how serious this disease is. For days, the boy was in agony, and the imperial court prepared for his death. Even he, at the age of 8, spoke to his mother of his hope that his coming death would take the pain away.
I can't even imagine that at 8 years old. You're like, ready
Yeah, and
for
he was
the...
like telling her, this is what I want my grave to look like. Do you think like I'm going to be out of pain in heaven? Finally, on October 9th, Alexander broke down and asked her lady-in-waiting, Anna Verobova, to write to Rasputin, who was still not welcome in the imperial household. Rasputin sent this reply. The little one will not die. Do not let the doctors bother him too much. The following day, the doctors noted that the Tsarevich had made a marked improvement.
That's crazy. That's so weird.
Rasputin wasn't even there.
And he's speaking words and making magic happen.
This marked Rasputin's return to royal favor. Nicholas tried to keep Rasputin at arm's length, even if he did not send him away for fear of angering his wife. Because Alexander was fully convinced that he is the only hope for my son, and if Nicholas sent him away and the boy died, he knew his beloved wife. Like, Nikki and Alex were obsessed with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Obsessed.
Right.
And, like, could you imagine, like, this wife that you're obsessed with, like, and your son dies, and she blames you because you sent somebody away?
Right, you wouldn't know what to do. You'd be fucked.
On July 28th, 1914, the Habsburg Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Emperor of Austria, and his wife Sophie were assassinated by a Serbian anarchist in Sarajevo and set off an international crisis. In early July 1914, Rasputin was stabbed by a peasant woman outside his home in Siberia and was nearly killed. This did not stop him from sending a telegram to Anna to pass along his advice to Nicholas, saying that going to war was a very bad idea. Nicholas was furious that this peasant from Siberia would give him advice. This and a debate in the Imperial Duma, which was the parliament of the time, led to Alexander no longer having face-to-face contact with Rasputin. Nicholas was like, that's it, you can't talk to him no more.
Okay.
But she would write him letters, which were passed through Anna. On July 30th, 1914, Nicholas ordered a complete mobilization of the Imperial Army. By the next day, World War I had begun. The war was not going well for Russia. The conflict, initially predicted to be over by Christmas 1914, proved to be a drag on the empire, which suffered heavy losses. I was reading one article where they had like 100 million trains at before the war, and halfway through the war they had about 9 million.
Trains?
Trains.
Why do you need that many trains?
Do you know Russia's 3 times the size, land-wise,
Yeah.
of the United States?
It's a big place, but they don't use all of it.
To move things, Paul.
Yeah, but you only need a couple trains to do that.
No, because they had industrial centers, and they did shipping and importing and exporting.
Girl, I don't know.
Because they had mines gold, silver, coal, uranium.
Yeah.
So, which they were shipping out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. So it was more to move stuff out.
9 million trains is a lot of trains.
Okay, maybe it was 1 million trains, and they got down to 9,000.
Okay.
Either way, it is a big jump.
Yeah.
Why are you so hung up on the trains, Paul?
Because that's a lot of trains. I don't even think we got that many trains in America right now,
because
bitch.
we drive and fly. Paul, back then, the only way you could get around was by horse and buggy, train, or boat.
Bitch, I don't know. It just sounded like a lot of trains. I don't know. Girl, what are we doing?
Fine, let me put it this way. They were drafting so many farmers and field workers into the army that the price of an egg went up 4 times.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes. I don't know what that has to do with trains, but...
Because the trains couldn't move the eggs, Paul. Okay. In September of 1915, Nicholas took personal control of the armed forces, partially on the advice of Rasputin. This was bad advice. Since Nicholas took the throne, he had already lost the Russo-Japanese War, lost the Revolution of 1905, had his power curbed by the Imperial Duma following the revolution, wrested power back from the Duma after Prime Minister Stolypin was assassinated, and then not successfully mediated the crisis which led to World War I, which is especially damning because the person he was fighting against was his cousin, the Kaiser of Germany.
Oh, I love Kaiser rolls. Oh my god. Have you ever had a Kaiser roll?
Yes, Paul, I have. So this was not good news for Russia because Nicholas was a really, really nice guy, but he was a really bad emperor. But this was great for Rasputin because Alexandra was named as regent, which means she was ruling the country in Nicholas's base while he was fighting the war. And Rasputin became her personal advisor.
There you go.
So remember how she wasn't having face-to-face contact with him?
No.
Nicholas left and she was like, well, now that I'm in charge, come on in.
Right. She was ready, but she said, come on in.
This was all too much for many, and they felt someone had to stop Rasputin, brought about the downfall of the empire. Enter Prince Felix Yusupov. He was the only son of one of Russia's wealthiest families and the husband of the Tsar's only biological niece. He was also a flagrant and flamboyant bisexual who enjoyed cross-dressing in his youth and openly wore his mother's gowns and jewels in public.
Oh, iconic! He was the original RuPaul. RuPaul's quaking.
Oh, especially with this next story. On one occasion, he attended the Paris Opera in full drag.
Yes.
Halfway through the performance, an usher came to his box with a bouquet of flowers and an invitation from a gentleman across the hall to dine with him after the performance. Felix was intrigued and looked through his opera glasses to see the man was King Edward VII of England, winking flirtatiously at him, thinking he was a woman.
Oh no!
Felix fled Paris that night.
Why didn't he just go to dinner?
Because Edward VII was, very not gay.
Oh, but they're both royalty. Like, if they were like, oh, you're just another royal, like, who cares?
I mean, Edward VII he was pretty fat. Like, he had to have a special chair made so that he could fuck women.
Oh.
So, there was a good chance, he might have not have noticed.
Yikes.
But Felix was not taking that chance.
Right, Felix said, skinny legends only.
Yeah, that's it. Felix decided, this bisexual crossdresser decided it was up to him to end Rasputin's reign of terror once and for all.
Yes.
On the night of December 30th, 1916, Felix invited Rasputin to the Moika Palace, his family's home in St. Petersburg, to meet his wife Irina, who is the Tsar's only biological niece.
Mm-hmm.
Irina was not there, but the Grand Duke Dmitri, Duma member Vladimir Parishkovich, soldier Sergei Sukhotin, assistant Stanislas de Lazover, as well as a valet and a major domo were all in the house. Rasputin arrived and was shown to a basement reception room, while upstairs the other men waited with a gramophone which repeatedly played Yankee Doodle. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a weird song choice.
Felix told Rasputin his wife had had a housewarming party following a major reconstruction on the palace, and as soon as her friends left, she would be down. In the meantime, Rasputin liked some tea and cakes. So, now I'm going to ask you, I have 2 cakes here. I have brown ones, and I have pink ones. Paul, would you like a brown one or a pink one?
I'm partial to the pink one, so I'm going to have to go with the pink one.
Okay.
We have our spooky snack. Thank you.
And would you like a brown one or a pink one? Pink one. There we go. I myself am going to have a brown one.
Yeah, that tracks.
It really does. Rasputin began to shove the cakes in his mouth and waved off the tea but asked for some more Madeira wine.
Oh, the Madeira wine we're drinking.
Yes.
We're having the cakes and wine like he did.
Felix was super prepared for this and poured him a glass.
Mm-hmm.
And he sat down as Rasputin was shoving the cake and guzzling the wine down. And what Rasputin did not know was that Felix had laced the wine with potassium cyanide and had laced the pink cakes with potassium cyanide.
Oh, girl, so we'd be dead.
Yes.
We chose the wrong cakes, girl.
I'm so glad. I was so afraid you were both going to pick the brown ones. And I was like, this is not going to be... Like, the whole joke's going to fail if they pick
This
the brown.
tracks. I usually pick the wrong cakes.
I should have put a picture of Felix in here because he was actually really pretty as a boy.
Felix threw the first brick at Moscow. It's a Stonewall joke. Marsha P. Johnson threw the first brick at Stonewall. Felix
It would be
threw
Moscow.
I don't give a fuck.
So Rasputin is shoving cakes in his mouth, drinking poison cakes in his mouth. He's drinking this poison tea. And for those of you who don't know, potassium cyanide in the smallest doses is extremely fatal and near instantaneous. But for the next hour, the two talked as Rasputin continued to gorge himself on the poisoned food and drink.
Bitch. And watch you walk free, too. Watch you just get up and go home.
Some say they discussed politics. Some say they discussed religion and the cult. Some say Felix performed sexual favors on Rasputin to get him to stay down there and not going to look for Irina or go home.
That's crazy.
After an hour, Rasputin was raving drunk, but the cyanide had not affected him in the least. Felix was terrified he might live until morning, and then they would be unable to hide the body. So he ran upstairs, and he came back, and he looked Rasputin in the eyes and said, "You better look at the crucifix and pray," and then shot him point blank in the chest. Rasputin fell on the ground and laid still. Felix returned upstairs, and they group-dressed Sukhotin in Rasputin's hat and coat and drove to his apartment to make it seem as if he had returned from the party. They returned to the palace to begin preparing to hide the body. Felix returned to the basement room to check on his victim. As he was examining the body, Rasputin leapt up onto his feet, foaming at the mouth and rambling, and attacked Felix.
Some people just don't die. He's like Michael Myers.
Very that. Felix escaped up the stairs and into the courtyard of the palace, with Rasputin chasing him, foaming at the mouth, where Porishkovich shot him in the back through the spine, at which point Rasputin fell into a snowbank. They get up to him, so he was shot not through the torso. The bullet went through his stomach and through his kidney.
Okay.
The second shot went through his spine, which made him fall. He is lying in the snow, still going, trying to attack them.
It's the demons escaping his body.
At this point, Felix grabbed the gun and shot Rasputin point blank in the forehead. And still he lived.
This is crazy. This is giving Blackbeard.
Felix had had enough of this. He dragged the body back inside and upon seeing a dumbbell, seized it and began to beat Rasputin with it until he stopped moving.
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, you know?
The group then wrapped the body in cloth, tied it up with chains, and dropped it off a bridge into the Little Nevka River nearby. There was like it was frozen over, but there was a fishing hole, and they just went bloop. News of the murder spread like wildfire through the capital. It was not until 2 days later the body was found under the river ice.
That's pretty gruesome.
He was found having freed his arms with a lot of cyanide in his system, with the multiple gunshots, with the beating, and with water in his lungs, which meant he had drowned, which means he wasn't dead when they threw him in the river.
That's crazy.
On January the 3rd, 1917, Rasputin was buried on the imperial estate Tsarsko Selo, with Alexandra and all 4 of her daughters present. In his coffin, they placed an icon, all 5 of them, and Alexei had signed. Alexei was too ill to attend. In a haunting letter sent the same month as he died, Rasputin told Alexandra, "If I am murdered, and the murder is committed by nobles, relatives of the Tsar, then the future of Russia and the imperial family will be terrible. The nobles will flee the country, and the relatives of the Tsar will not be alive in 2 years. Brothers will rise up against brothers and will kill each other."
And guess what happened?
This haunting last prediction soon came to pass. On March 15th, 1917, Nicholas was forced to abdicate the throne following mounting losses in the war and civil unrest at home. He and his family were arrested and sent to Tobolsk, Siberia, pending exile to England, where Nicky's cousin George V was king. In October, the Socialist Bolsheviks staged a revolution and founded the Soviet Union. The aristocracy and members of the extended imperial family fled to Ukraine, Switzerland, and France as the former Tsar and his family were moved to Yekaterinburg. On the night of July 17th, 1918, the family was awoken and told they were being moved for their safety. They were arranged in a basement room and all shot to death, along with 4 of their servants who remained faithful to them. This, however, is not the end of Rasputin's story. During the early days of the revolution which ousted Nicholas, Rasputin's body was dug up by soldiers on orders of the provisional government. They took it and burned it until nothing remained. But while burning it, it sat up and pointed an accusing finger at them, as if cursing his enemies one last time.
Okay, that's iconic. He said, "Screw you guys one last time," and I'm here for that.
There is one part of Rasputin that you can still visit to this day. In the Museum of Erotica in St. Petersburg, you can see a jar containing the pickled 12-inch penis once belonging to Grigory Rasputin.
I don't want to see that Why do you have that picture ready, girl? I don't want to see all that. We don't need to see this. We need to change this. I did not give consent for this.
We're going to leave it up.
On God's internet?
One legend states that Felix Yusupov had cut it off the night of his death. Another says Grand Duchess Tatiana was a witness to the murder and she castrated himself. Personally, I think one of the soldiers who dug him up did it because the autopsy said that it was intact. Following the revolution, it's made its way to Paris, where it was worshipped by a group of women who believed it had powers of granting fertility.
This is crazy, girl. I need to go home. Okay, this is enough. Rasputin, he's done. This is enough. He's canceled.
Rasputin's daughter, Maria Rasputina, now a circus performer, sued the cult for it on the grounds that it was the remains of her late father, and won.
God.
Come
on, Rasputina.
She later sold them in the 1970s when she was hard up for money.
Hey, one last gift from her dad,
It was bought in 2000 by Dr. Igor Kazniakin, who put it on display in Russia's first erotic museum. On the bright side, the Romanovs fared somewhat better. The remains were excavated in the 1990s and interred in the Imperial Mausoleum in St. Petersburg among their relatives. Well, all of them, except perhaps one. But that's another story.
Okay, cool.
Do you want to hear some of Rasputin's prophecies?
Sure.
In 1912, he had published a book of these. So the first one is, whenever I embrace the Tsar and Tsarina, the girls and the Tsarevich, I shudder with horror as if I embraced the dead. And then I pray for these people. I pray for the imperial family because the shadow of a long eclipse falls on them. So that some believe that predicts the imperial family's 1918 murders. The second one is, darkness will descend on Petersburg. When its name is changed, then the empire will end. On September 1st, 1914, the government changed the city's name from the German St. Petersburg to the Russian Petrograd due to the war, and civil unrest would follow in the coming years, leading to the revolution in 1917. He also predicted global natural disasters, including seas rising up and entering cities. Since Rasputin's death, sea levels have risen by 20 centimeters, and scientists predict that they will continue to rise by up to 2 meters over the next century.
Well, that's just global warming, girl.
But they didn't know about global warming back then. And even if they did, would a illiterate Siberian peasant know about it?
Hey, don't doubt people, okay?
The next one is, when times draw near to the abyss, man's love for man will turn into a dry plant, basically predicting, the violence that would come.
Okay.
And lastly, 3 hungry snakes will crawl along the roads of Europe, leaving behind ash and smoke. The time of peace will come, but the world will be written in blood, and when 2 fires go out, the 3rd fire will burn the ashes. So Rasputin predicts 3 world wars. only 2 of which have yet come to pass.
Okay, that's spooky. I don't like that one.
So I've got one question for you.
Yeah.
Would you rather kiss Rasputin with his gross-ass hygiene or use his pickled penis as a dildo?
Oh, jeez. I feel like the kiss would be quicker, so I'm gonna have to do that.
Do you want to weigh in? No.
Yeah, the kiss would be quicker, so we're just gonna do that.
I'll turn the penis off for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
What a wild ride.
Rasputin, that's crazy about him. Like...
Yeah, sorry for the instances of history, but, like, it's important to understand his full story and how he got that power.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely get it. And what was I gonna say?
I tried to make it as fun as possible.
His story is really wild. Like, the way he could predict things and stuff, he was, like, kind of like the Nostradamus of that time.
Yes.
Which I think is pretty cool. I don't know if any of you folks at home know about Nostradamus and his predictions and stuff. But I don't know.
Are you calling dibs?
No, you can do Nostradamus. Okay. I don't care. But also, like, the supernatural stuff is crazy, and the wild sex stuff, that's wild. Like,
yeah, to, like, literally be able to, like, say, like, don't worry, you're gonna be healed.
right?
And be
like...
so far away, and, like, it just happened.
And I want to say it's just folklore, but at the same time, these are royal families documenting these. Like...
Okay, let me just quickly, like, one sentence each, the major theories behind him.
Okay.
1. He was a holy man capable of performing miracles who healed Alexei.
Mm-hmm.
2. He used Far Eastern herbs ignored by Western doctors.
Okay.
3. He used hypnosis. So basically putting Alexei in a trance would slow the blood flow, easing the bleeding.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting theory.
4. He was a fraud using insider knowledge to fake the miracles. Remember, his close confidant was the Tsarina's best friend. She would say, he's starting to get better. He would send the telegram. It would seem like he had something to do with it.
Ah, interesting.
And last but not least, because it's probably the most probable other than he was just capable of healing him, his advice to our doctors to leave Alexei alone was to thank, because doctors at this time would probably have given Alexei copious amounts of aspirin for the pain, not yet knowing that aspirin acts as a blood thinner.
Oh, that makes sense.
And remember, at least all my direct quotes were, tell the doctors to leave him alone.
Gosh, okay, that makes sense. I don't know what to think now then. Definitely an interesting story for sure. And if I had to believe any of those theories, I don't know, the last one makes sense, or maybe the telegram thing. I mean, they all make sense and could be
I don't know. I almost want to believe that he was just, like, capable of doing this magic because...
I mean, he was a creepy looking man. I wouldn't be... He looks like the type.
And prophecies.
The prophecies are interesting, for sure. Gosh, I hope the World War I doesn't come true. Well, it can come true after I'm dead. That's fine.
I mean, it could be like the War on Terror. It could be the Cold War. And it has already come to pass.
Right. Interesting. Well, you folks at home weigh in and let us know, and we have a new way for you guys to weigh in on the story.
Please text us.
Yes.
Yeah, just text us your thoughts. Blow up our inbox.
Yeah, so the podcast platform we use, Buzzsprout, now allows us to... So basically, go to the description, click on send us a message, and it'll prompt you to like be able to send us a message. Now, don't get excited. It's not our personal numbers, girl. So if you want to reach us personally, you can find me at Paul Ember on my personal Instagram at Paul Ember, Paulember, and my personal TikTok at Paul Ember, Paulember.
You can find me at The Real Deej Powers on TikTok and on Instagram. Or if you want to slide into my DMs, you can find my profile on Seeking Connections at Sugar Baby for Rich Daddy.
I forgot to say, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
I was about to say it. Please follow us on all of our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, though we don't use Twitter. And please email us story suggestions or your personal stories at cripsandcorks@gmail.com.
Or send them via text message in the description down below. Again, just click
Suggestions,
send us
yes. Please do not send stories over text messages because we will end up losing them.
Oh, okay. Never mind, email those.
Email the stories, but like text us suggestions.
Right, or just comments, or heck, text us whatever you want us to know. Anything, really.
Slide into my DMs. I'm still single, ready to mingle.
Right, we're both still single and ready to go.
And that's all she wrote.
That was an amazing story. I know there was a lot of history, but thank you for sharing that one.
You're
I really
welcome.
enjoyed
I tried
that
to make
one.
it not boring.
But for now,
Keep your crips tight.
and your corks loose.
Bestrovia. Bye.
Bye.
That was so delayed.
I know, I got distracted. Whoops.
You're looking to my crazy eyes.
All three of them. And one of them's not where you think it is.
Oh, God.